They can normalize rates in the balance sheet, and they can stop inflation, but not without causing recession and not without causing a stock market crash. 2020 and over the course of 2021, there was a big debate in economics and among analysts about inflation versus maybe disinflation. Still have inflation, but at a lower rate. And that debate kind of went on through all of most of 2021, but that's over. Inflation's here. There's no more debate about it. The new debate is, will it persist? Will it get worse, which it might, or will it be subdued in some way? Now, I have actually been in the camp. Again, you can see the inflation coming. It's here. It's going to persist for a while. That's the big question. Will it kind of tail off quickly over the next few months, or will it kind of be the dominant theme for 2022? I definitely lean to the latter. However, going out, maybe 9 months to a year, I see that curve bending and getting into a more disinflationary mode, not for good reasons. Has very what does have to do with the Fed, in the sense that they've painted themselves into a corner. There's no way to escape the room. They can subdue the inflation, but at the cost of a very severe recession, not a mild recession, a very severe recession. Will the Fed go down that path, do what they have to do the only thing they can do to subdue inflation at the cost of a very severe recession and something like a stock market crash? Or will they see that coming? They'll be the last to know. We'll all see it before they do, but they'll be the last to know. It's because they rely on flood models, and they're kind of in their own economic forecasting bubble, and they're very defective ways of thinking about the economy, and they're very much a creature of inertia. There are a whole lot of reasons why the Fed is not nimble. It's kind of quite the opposite. But they'll see it eventually, probably when it's too late. And will they balk at that point and stop rate hikes and maybe even reduce rates? That could save us from the recession, but that will just amplify the inflation. So rather than say which one's going to happen, I prefer to lay out those two paths and then just watch it very carefully. But more to the point, we've seen this movie before. This is a replay, and I think it's on, like you hit the remote control for double or triple speed. It's going to happen faster, but this is a replay of everything that happened from 2013 to 2019 and into 2020. All the Fed was trying to do was to get back to normal. They were trying to get interest rates to maybe 2.25, 2.5, get the balance sheet down to, something like 2.5 trillion. They never specified it, but that would have been a reasonable level. So, okay, now interest rates are kind of normal, 2.5, balance sheet's down around 2.5 trillion. We're back to normal. We finally got through the global financial crisis of 2008. We undid all that stuff. Well, what happened? From October 1st, 2018 to December 24th, 2018, the stock market dropped 20%. But the Fed was tightening into the weakness, as they always do. And then by early 2020, here comes the pandemic. And then they took rates all the way back to zero. And then they started QE, 6, 7, call it what you want. They took the balance sheet to $7.5 trillion after getting it down to $3.5 trillion. So look at that whole sequence from 2013 to early 2020, including the pandemic. What happened? They tapered the asset purchases. They raised rates. They sank the stock market. Then they said, okay, no more rate hikes. Then they cut rates, and then they started QE. And by April 2020, where were we? Zero rates, back down to zero, and the balance sheet was $7.5 trillion after getting down to about $3.5 trillion. So that was a big circle. They ended up back where they started from. But the point being, they failed to normalize. They failed to get rates where they wanted. They failed to get the balance sheet where they wanted. They did sink the stock market. Okay, now 2 years forward, here we are again. What are we doing? They just raised rates at the March meeting. They're going to raise them again in May. And that's the easiest forecast I've ever made. 50 basis points, May 4th. Boom. You can count on it. And they're going to announce. By the way, I don't have a crystal ball. The Fed told us this. I mean, that's the thing about the Fed. They may be wrong, but they're transparently wrong. So they tell you what mistakes they're going to make in advance. So that's the Fed forecasting is actually fairly straightforward because you just have to believe them. Quantitative tightening. In other words, they're running the same playbook they tried to run, or they started to run in 2013, 2014. But here's my question. They failed the last time. Why do they think they're going to be any more successful this time? Why do they think they can get out of this? And the answer is, pardon me, the answer is they cannot without a recession. They can normalize rates in the balance sheet and they can stop inflation, but not without causing recession and not without causing a stock market crash. So the big question for the next year is, will the Fed do that? And they may. Paul Volcker did it. Or will they balk again, at which point you might rescue the market, but the inflation is just going to go wild. That's the debate. But the thing is about framing it that way. You've got two paths, and we'll get signals along the way. We won't be the last to know. The Fed will, but we won't. You'll be able to see this coming. The global supply chain is breaking down. It was already breaking down. Now it's a lot worse. Now along comes the war in Ukraine, and you're absolutely right about the wheat. Russia and Ukraine. Now I know they're on different sides of the war. They're in a fight to the death, but taken economically, if you combine Russia and Ukraine, you're looking at 25% of all the wheat exports in the world. Now, obviously, that's a huge number, but the point is there are countries where they get 100% of their wheat from one of those two places. Lebanon gets 100% of its wheat from Ukraine. Lebanon is a basket case anyway, and now there's no food. There are countries in Africa where people are going to be starving. So that is that's going to be not just an economic dislocation and an inflationary vector. It is that, but you're looking at humanitarian tragedies on a colossal scale. You're looking at starvation in a lot of cases. But let's not, and that's bad enough. Let's not stop with wheat. For example, the U.S. said we're not allowing any advanced semiconductors, maybe any semiconductors at all, or high tech equipment to be exported to Russia. Certainly can't come from the U.S. But the United States went further. We said, we don't care who you are, if you're China, Taiwan, Japan, anyone else. If you're manufacturing advanced technology equipment and tools and using semiconductors that involve U.S. technology or U.S. tools, because you're operating under a license for the United States, you can't export to Russia either. Cars have 1,400 semiconductors. They're basically computers on wheels. When I was a kid, you learn how to stick a screwdriver in a carburetor if the engine was flooded. They don't even have carburetors anymore. They got semiconductors. So these supply chains are breaking down. And you're like, why isn't it worse right now? The answer is they manufacturers and intermediate participants in the global supply chain have what they call safety stock. It's a little extra inventory, maybe more than you want, but just in case there's a minor disruption. Well, this isn't a minor disruption. This is a major disruption. You can get by for 30 days using up your safety stock, but then you got to go reorder. And that's when you find out that either the price has tripled or it's just not available at any price. It's a really long list. Aluminum, platinum, palladium,